Ted and Barbara was so used to being a big, popular act and with substantial earnings that when it reversed and Julie became the breadwinner, that was a tough passage for them. I remember she used to keep a journal, and this was a time when things were particularly rough at home, and her stepdad was going through some drinking problems and would have a tendency to break up the house now and then. And in her journals, she would refer to this as the most perfect and magical home, and how lucky she was.
I never thought in the old days that my early days in vaudeville would be of any use to me at all. And yet here in Victor Victoria, and many, many other times as well, some of the humor, some of the comedy, whatever you do, you store away somewhere and it's used.
Tomorrow comes with no guarantee. We need each other for company. And come what
I did tour long enough and visit enough theaters that I really got a taste of vaudeville, what it was like in its glory days. I was able to observe so many wonderful comedians, wonderful performers, wonderful acrobatic acts and juggling acts and things like that. I was able to see a lady called Ella Shields, and she did a wonderful song called Burlington Bertie, which I subsequently did in the film Star.
The Prince of Wales' brother, along with some other, slaps me on the back and says, come and see mother. I'm Bert, and royalty's hurt when they ask me to dine. I say no. I just had a banana with Lady Diana. I'm Burlington Bertie. Burlington Bertie. I'm Burlington Bertie. I'm Burlington Bertie.
Who knows, she could have been the lady that set me on the road to Victor Victoria.
You're on your own, kid. What?
Your turn.
Ruby Keeler has my tap shoes.
What made you and me will stay together.
I was doing Cinderella in London, and a lady who was the director of a play called The Boyfriend came to see the show and asked if I would like to come to Broadway.
The Boyfriend opened over here at a tiny, tiny theatre club, and it just took the fancy of people, the 1920s, the flapper period.
And they cast a new company to come to America. I said, oh no, I couldn't possibly leave home, and my family needs me, and I kind of had become a little bit the family caretaker.
And she'd knock on the door, open the door, and there's Julie. And for a moment I didn't recognize her with the light behind her, this beautiful girl. And she said, hello, Uncle Michael. She'd been crying.
She didn't want to do The Boyfriend because she realized she was going to have to be away from home for a serious chunk of time.
I'm off to America with a boyfriend. And I said, who is he? Thinking the swine taking this young child to America. She said, no, with the boyfriend. It's the show. I said, oh my God, yes. Well, why are you crying? It'll be a great success. Well, I'm frightened and I don't want to leave home.
My dear real father said, Julie, for God's sake, go. It could last 3 months, it could last 3 weeks. It will open up your head. Do it.
We've got to have, we've got to have, for it's so dreary not to have that certain thing called the boyfriend. We scheme about and dream about, and we've been known to scream about that certain thing called the boyfriend.
Dilys Slay was the first roommate I ever had, and it was the oddest but ultimately most satisfying coupling because where I was absolutely painfully shy and wouldn't have dared venture out. She was this wonderful extrovert that wasn't frightened of anything.
She was a very private person, Julie, whereas I effervesced off in all directions, heaven knows what I used to say, and I don't think I went to bed for 4 months. Julie always did. She was very much more family-minded than me, I think. Her heart was always in England.
All we want is a room in Bloomsbury.
We did about 2 weeks of previews, and each night I noticed that I would get a different reception. Some nights I guess I was over the top, some nights I didn't know what I was doing. Some nights I probably got it right unconsciously.
Julie was very used to standing up there, playing this perky little girl, playing herself. Suddenly she's being asked to play a girl who is lost, who is lonely, who thinks nobody loves her for anything but her money, who falls in love. It's a long journey she was asked to make at the age of 18.
Cy Feuer, our producer, came to me the day that we opened, and he said, you know, you were awful last night, you were terrible. And I said, I know, what happened? And he said, everybody else is being funny, everybody else is being comedic. I want you to just be absolutely straight. Just stay inside your character and be that lady who loses her love and whose heart is breaking.
I could be happy with you if you could be happy with me.
Everything I did from the heart. And it did work, and to my total surprise, it sort of threw me up into some kind of stardom, because the notices were wonderful the next morning, and I thank Cy from the bottom of my heart.
When we took the curtain call, Julie'd suddenly gone, and the audience were calling for her. She was the great success of the evening. Polly Brown, Polly Brown, Polly Brown, they kept saying. And I had to race to the dressing room, and I grabbed her and said, come on, they're calling for you. Come back on stage.
She was extraordinarily shy, not only socially in life off stage, but of how little she knew of conventional acting techniques. She'd always just done it. She'd never trained it. But at the moment that she got before an audience, she was home. That was what she knew.
I sang for Rodgers and Hammerstein for a show called Pipe Dream. I was just finishing The Boyfriend, about to go home after my year, and I sang for them, and when my aria was finished, Rodgers said, have you been auditioning or, you know, seeing anybody else? And I said, oh, yes, I've been auditioning for some gentlemen called Lerner and Lowe, and they're thinking of doing this musical version of Shaw's Pygmalion called My Fair Lady. And Rodgers paused for a moment, and then he said, I want to say something to you. If they ask you, I think you should do My Fair Lady. If they don't ask you, I'd like you to let me know, because we would like to also use you. But do My Fair Lady if they ask you.
Wouldn't it be lovely?
All I want is a room somewhere far away from the cold night air, with one enormous chair. Wouldn't it be lovely?
I felt sure that I understood Eliza, but I didn't. I was too shy and too gauche and too full of insecurities in those years to know whether anybody would know that I could. And Marshart gave me such dignity and such great advice, and he really was very, very tough. You know, he closed the rehearsal process for about 48 hours, and we spent one very long weekend where he pushed and bullied and cajoled and showed me and was Eliza Doolittle sometimes, and then told me to stop acting like a girl guide and so on and so forth. He made me have a picture of what Eliza should be.
Who takes good care